So we're going to talk about sources for verification. Written evidence is the primary source for income verification, including Workforce TANF, FDPIR, other source categorical eligibility programs, and foster child households. Written evidence is most often pay stubs from employers, award letters from welfare departments or governmental agencies. Written evidence needs to have the name of the household member, the amount of the income received, the frequency, and the date received. So a pay stub without a date is not acceptable. The SFA may request this information from the FNS Workforce TANF FDPIR agency, but must still notify the parent. Acceptable written evidence for children who are receiving benefits from an assistance program is an official letter or notice indicating that the child or any household member is receiving benefits from that program. For example, it could be a notice of eligibility. For other source categorical eligibility programs, an official letter, notice, or list from the appropriate state agency or from a social services agency or a court system. For foster children or for Head Start, Even Start enrollees from the office or coordinator for those programs. The verifying official should examine the documents provided to ensure that the child for whom the application was made is a part of the household currently participating in any of these programs noted above or on this slide or is a foster child. Please know that EBT cards cannot be used to confirm eligibility in SNAP or FNS, and therefore they can't be used for categorical eligibility purposes. A document from an assistance program that does not specify the certification period is not adequate for documentation. For example, the FNS identification card is not acceptable because it usually does not have an expiration date. Acceptable FNS TANF FDPIR would have the child's name listed, but again, the EBT card is not sufficient. A household that does not have satisfactory documentation from the assistance office, state, or local agency for other source categorical eligibility may request a signed dated letter from these offices verifying that the child is part of a household that's currently receiving their benefits. So here's just an example. If you're receiving a letter or written documentation from an assistance program, then you want to make sure that it's on agency letterhead. You want to make sure that there is a date available, make sure it's an official document, and that it indicates the name, the amount, and that it's signed by an official. A collateral contact is a person outside of the household who is knowledgeable about the household's circumstances and can confirm a household's income participation in assistance programs or other source categorical eligibility program sources. Employers, social services agencies, migrant worker agencies, and religious or civic organizations. The verifying official should request a collateral contact only in cases when the household has not been able to provide adequate written evidence. The verifying official must give the household the opportunity to designate the collateral contact. However, the verifying official may select a collateral contact if the household fails to designate one or designates one who is unacceptable to the verifying official. In either case, no contact may be made without first notifying the household and obtaining its permission. All collateral contacts may be written or oral and must be documented, dated, and initialed. The LEA will examine any written information provided by the collateral contact or evaluate any oral information. If the collateral contact is unwilling or unable to provide the requested information, the LEA must contact the household to complete the verification process. Earlier we talked about agency records, so please be reminded that a household's eligibility may be confirmed through the use of information maintained by other government agencies to which the state agency, LEA, or school has legal access. Such records are state records, and the release of information maintained by state employment offices is governed by state law. Acceptable documentation of income or receipt of assistance from any of the above sources may be provided for any point in time between the month prior to application and the time that a household is required to provide the income documentation. So basically, if an application was submitted on the first day of school, August 24th, then any documentation from maybe about a month before, July 24th, till around mid-November, may be accepted, whether it's the income documentation or other source categorical documentation. When a household provides pay stubs, um, a weekly pay stub is representative of what the household normally receives each week, so that means one pay stub is sufficient. If the household submits a pay stub that includes overtime, the determining official should work with the household to determine whether the overtime for the month being verified is representative of overtime received in other months. If the overtime is a one-time or sporadic source of income, then income should be calculated based on the regular monthly income without considering the overtime. Now, if you were a part of the eligibility webinar, then we talked about the no income indication. So if a household is selected for regular verification or verification for calls and the application indicates zero income, then this is the point where you will ask for an explanation of how living expenses are met, and you may request written documentation, additional written documentation, or collateral contacts. So when we're looking at applications on the eligibility side, if it indicates a zero or no income, then we process it at face value. But it's during verification when we try to figure out where if there is no income, then how are you providing for your living expenses, and then if they are able to, then you want to ask them to provide written documentation, or you want them to provide a collateral contact that can kind of share how they're able to maintain living expenses with no income coming in. All right, now we're going to talk about direct verification. If information obtained through the verification of application for meal benefits indicates a child is participating in an eligible assistance program, no additional verification is required. The eligibility status of the child or children listed on the application is considered verified. So when we get to the verification season, we do highly recommend that you try to see if you can find the children on the the application that needs to be verified. Try to see if you can find them in the DV system, because if you do find them in there, then no additional verification is required. And that way you can kind of move to the next application. And this is always done prior to sending out the verification selection letter to the household. So you may ask, well, when is verification considered complete for direct verification applications? So applications selected for verification are verified through the school nutrition technology system. When they are an exact match, which means that the free application, they were verified, they were confirmed as free initially, and they're determined to be free in the DV system, or the same as reduced when you did the application initially, and then reduced in the DV system, then verification is considered complete at that time and no letters are sent to the household. Now, on the flip side, if they were originally determined to be reduced and in the DV system, they're considered to be free, then verification is considered complete once you send a letter to the household to let them know that their benefits have been increased. And then lastly, this is the third scenario, the original determination is free, but in the direct verification system it indicates reduced, then verification must be completed through regular verification activities. So 2 out of 3 times, it's a quicker process, because all you have to do is, in the first situation, verification is done. In the second scenario, verification is done once you let them know that their benefits have been increased. It's only in the third scenario, when there is a potential decrease in benefits, that you have to finish out the verification process. So we highly recommend that you check the DV system before you proceed with sending the verification selection letter to the household. So as we continue with the process, when is a follow-up required? To continue the verification process subsequent to household notification, the LEA must either determine if the household has submitted adequate information to complete its individual verification application, or whether or not follow-up is needed. The SFA must make at least one follow-up attempt to contact the household that does not adequately respond to the verification request. We do recommend that you go ahead and make that second attempt. And if you do make a second attempt in writing, email, or by telephone, you want to make sure that you document who you spoke to, and the date that you spoke to them, and what was the result of the the conversation. You may deem it necessary to make additional attempts to lower your non-response rate if you're trying to get it under 20%, which we encourage. And you want to ensure that adequate language assistance is provided and that failure to respond to the request will result in the termination of benefits. So you want to make sure that you're communicating that in a way that the household understands. The LEA must make a follow-up attempt when the household does not respond to the request for verification, when they submit insufficient or obsolete written evidence, when they don't designate a collateral contact, or when the collateral contact is unable to provide requested information. So a follow-up is required in all of these situations. If there's no response, if there's insufficient response, if there's no collateral contact, or if the collateral contact can't provide what you need. So follow-up is always required. If after at least one follow-up attempt, the household responds and provides all needed evidence, then verification is considered complete for this household. If there is no change, or if there is a change and the household is notified that there will be an increase in benefits, or if there is a notice of adverse action sent, which means that the benefits have been reduced or terminated. If a household does not respond, verification is considered complete for this household when the notice of adverse action is sent. And also LEAs are if an LEA is unable to continue its verification activities because the household fails to provide adequate written evidence or knowledgeable collateral contacts, then verification is considered complete for the household when the adverse action is sent. All right, and I just actually said this one. So we have 3 scenarios, and you will know whether or not verification is complete depending on the results of the follow-up attempt. So let's do this one more time. When is verification considered complete? And I did it in a table because it's easier for me to comprehend. So I hope this is helpful to someone. Okay, so for the first scenario, let's say the household submits adequate evidence of income or categorical eligibility. Verification is complete for that household. The second scenario, the household submits adequate evidence of income, which indicates that the children should receive a greater or lesser level. Verification is considered complete when you notify the household, whether through adverse action letter or you notify them that the benefits will be increased or decreased. That's when verification is complete for that second scenario. If the household indicates that it no longer wishes to receive free or reduced benefits, then the verification is complete for this scenario once you send the adverse action letter. And then lastly, let's say the application or the household provides case numbers and it's determined that no household member is receiving benefits from an assistance program, then verification is complete for the fourth scenario when the notice of adverse action letter is sent. When we're talking about increase and decrease in benefits, if they're receiving higher benefits, which means that they're moving from reduced to free or from paid to denied, from paid/denied to free or paid/denied to reduced, then that means that the benefits should be changed immediately and implemented no later than 3 operating days and the household is notified. On the flip side, if their benefits are being lowered, which means their status is changing from free to reduced, or reduced to paid denied, then you want to give them 10 calendar days for the adverse action notice. You want to give them sufficient time to make preparation to send in funds for their student to receive meals at the school. This notification can be sent by U.S. Postal Service or email, but it cannot be done by phone. We've talked about the notice of adverse action letter a couple of times, and this letter is sent to households when you're reducing or terminating benefits. It has to give a 10-day calendar day written notice. If a family responds on November the 15th and the benefit is lower, then you have to give the family, again, 10 days notice so they can make preparation to send funds with their child. The notice of adverse action letter can be sent by the U.S. Postal Service or to the email address of a parent or guardian. You cannot notify the household by phone. So I'm being repetitive, but this is just to kind of drill those ideas and those concepts into your mind. The first day of the adverse notice period is the day the notice is sent. The notice must advise the household of the following: that there has been a change in benefits, the reason why, that they have an option for an appeal. You want to let them know how to appeal, and also let the household know that they can reapply for benefits at any time during the school year, and if this is applicable, that the household was terminated because no member was receiving benefits from an assistance program, but they can submit an application containing household names and income information, or they can provide written evidence of current household information. Households affected by a reduction or termination of benefits may reapply for benefits at any time during the school year. However, if benefits to a household have been terminated and the household reapplies in the same school year, the household is required to submit income documentation or proof of participation in assistance programs at the time of reapplication, and these are not considered new applications. All right, let's talk about record keeping. Documentation must be kept by the LEA to demonstrate compliance with the verification requirements when LEAs are reviewed by state or federal reviewers, including any documentation that's a part of any appeals. LEAs must maintain a description of their verification efforts. The description must include a summary of the verification efforts, including the selection process, the number of applications on file as of October 2nd, the percentage or number of applications that will be verified or should be verified by November 15th. The LEA must also be able to demonstrate compliance with the confirmation review requirement and provision of a no-cost telephone number for assistance in the verification process. So ideally, if you're making a file, the SFA should have in the file the verification plan, the approved selection verification selection method, the verification sample pool, that's the number of applications approved as of October 2nd, the verification sample size, any replaced applications, and if it's applicable, it can exceed 5%. You want to have the confirmation signatures on the applications. Copies of the applications are preferred. The selection letters, the second attempt, whether written or verbal, you want to have that documented. The verification results letter, and the verification summary report if it has been completed by that time. Copies of all relevant correspondence between the household selected for verification and the LEA. One of the following for all documentation used to verify eligibility: all documents submitted by the household or reproductions of those documents. In cases where the actual documents or photocopies cannot be kept, the verifying official must make written records of the documents submitted by the household, including the type of document, whether it was a pay stub or a letter, the income shown on the document, the time period, and the date, and any changes in eligibility as a result of verification, the reason for the change, and the date that the change was made. Copies of all relevant correspondence between the household selected for verification and LEAs. And I know I just read it. I just realized I have two files, but you just want to make sure that you document not just the whole verification process, but as you're contacting individual households, you want to make sure that you're documenting that any type of follow-up attempts, any type of conversation, any type of dialogue, anything that happens between you and the household, you want to make sure you keep that as a part of the individual application file. If you have questions about verification and extended benefits, then you can look at Policy Memo SP 51, 2014. And remember, it is the responsibility of the SFA to have documentation. Anytime you extend benefits, you just want to make sure that you document why you extended benefits and off of which student did you extend those benefits. Earlier in the presentation, we talked about verification for calls, so let's go over that really quickly. Verification for calls based off of 7 CFR 245 6AC7 requires LEAs to verify any questionable application, including on a case-by-case basis, verifying for any application for calls when the LEA is aware of additional income or persons in the household. Verification for calls is done in addition to the required sample size. An SFA may do verification for calls at any point in time during the school year. The SFA has an obligation to verify all questionable applications, and that's what we consider to be verification for calls. However, this process cannot delay the approval of the application. if the application is complete. Once the determination is made, the SFA may begin verification. To verify an approved application for calls, a verification letter explaining that the household must submit verification of eligibility information with the application for continued eligibility must be sent to the household, and this may be done again at the same time that the notification letter is sent. If the household does not respond by the date set by the SFA, an adverse letter must be sent. Once verification information is requested, the verification process must be completed. So in other words, you can't start a verification for cause process and then stop midway. You have to finish it out. Similar to all other verification processes, you have to, once you start it, then you have to complete it. We talked about this just sporadically throughout the presentation, but we do report our verification results, and that's done in the technology system. That's going to be, it's called the FNS 742 report, and you'll receive a reminder as we get closer to that time period. If a child is directly certified as Medicaid free on the direct certification list, the child and all applicable children in the household must be included on the verification collection report. For verification, the student data cannot include the Medicaid reduced students. And when you, I probably will do like a short tutorial on the in the technology system for the verification collection report. But just as a reminder, in section 3, you want to follow the current FNS 742 instructions for all questions. And in question 3-3, you're going to include the number of students directly certified. Remember, the number of applications recorded as verification for calls is not added to the sample size, but you will report that again in the verification collection report. There is a question that's at the very end of the report where you have to indicate the number of applications that you verified for calls. And if you have specific questions about that process, then you want to look at page 99 in the eligibility manual. It can give you a little bit more information on verification for calls and what it entails. Especially for special cases with school district employees, verification for calls must not be used to automatically verify the households of all school district employees whose children are certified for free or reduced price meals. However, from among the list of children approved, an LEA could identify children of school district employees and use available LEA salary information available to them to identify questionable applications and then conduct verification for calls on those questionable applications. We do encourage you that if you believe that you may have an issue, that you check with your legal counsel in order to determine or address any integrity concerns. LEAs can, again, use verification for calls to review approved applications for free or reduced price meals, but this is the key point. When known or available information indicates school district employees may have misrepresented their income. So you can't do it just at random. You have to have personal knowledge or available information that indicates that there was some type of misrepresentation of their incomes on the application. And again, we encourage you to consult with legal counsel to address any type of integrity issues or concerns. All right, as we wrap up our verification webinar, we're going to talk about some common misunderstandings, things that we oftentimes find on ARs, the technical assistant reviews regarding errors or misunderstandings. So we just want to clear it up as we prepare to finish up this webinar. Oftentimes we find that the verification process did not start on time or did not end on time. It can be that the SFA was not familiar with their verification method, so they used the wrong one. Or perhaps the SFA did not understand what a sample size was. Maybe they did 100% of their sample pool. If it's a smaller school or a smaller district, maybe they again verified 100%, or maybe they didn't understand the sample size is based off of 3%, or they use 2% for alternate 2, or they use 5% for standard method. So you want to make sure that you understand the method that you're using and that you understand how to find the sample size. Another common misunderstanding is the software did not select the correct number of applications. So even if you're using software for your verification process, just do a manual check with the calculator to determine if the correct number of applications have been chosen for the sample size. It can be that the software that you have is not compliant, so you want to make sure that the software that you're paying for is meeting the needs to follow through with the verification process. Another common misunderstanding is that the sample size was not rounded up. So maybe they got 4.1 and instead of rounding up to 5 for their sample size, they rounded down to 4. Um, so that can be a common misunderstanding. It's also an error because that means you under verified the number of applications versus verifying the correct number. Another common misunderstanding is that the confirmation process did not take place, or maybe just one person looked at the application. It could be because we didn't know or there was no one there, but you want to make sure that the confirmation process does take place. If you have an application that's pulled for a direct certification student or a student that's directly certified, you want to put that in an inactive file. You do not want to verify applications pulled for directly certified students. And the last one on this slide is you only made one attempt when maybe 2 or 3 would have been sufficient enough for you to receive a response. So again, make more than one attempt to receive a response from the household. Other common misunderstandings is there is no documentation. Even if a second attempt was made, there was no documentation of it, so it's almost as if it did not happen. The second one is a student withdrawals during the verification process. So not only could you not complete the process, you didn't replace the application. So that could be another common misunderstanding. Again, if you have a student withdrawal, then replace the application with a light application. And if you need additional time to complete verification on that application, then please reach out to me so that we can grant you that additional time. And then households that reapply, they reapplied, but they didn't provide income and they didn't provide proof of FNS. So that is another common misunderstanding. So if you have a household that reapplies after November 15th and they do have to provide proof of income or proof that they participate in a eligible program. Another common misunderstanding is the record keeping is off, which means that, well, I think I did it, I'm not sure, but because we don't have the documentation, we can't verify that you did what you said you were going to do. For example, I sent the selection letters, but they're not in the file. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up with your documentation. And for what I've seen just across the places that I've been across the state, the documentation is on point. So continue to properly and accurately record everything that needs to be recorded and keep copies if you're able to. At least if you're not able to keep the actual document, then keep a copy of the document so that we can confirm that you've done what you said you've done. So thank you. I want to thank you for participating in this verification webinar. I hope the information that you heard has been helpful as you prepare for the verification season. Again, if you do have any questions, then we welcome you to reach out to your area consultant. If you're unable to reach them or if you have a question specifically for me, then you're able to, and you're welcome to reach out to me. My name is Jacqueline McGowan. I'm the compliance specialist with the Office of School Nutrition at the Department of Public Instruction. My email address and my telephone number are both on this slide. So again, we encourage you, if you have any questions at all, we're here to help and we want to make sure that your verification process is a success. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to reach out to us and we would be glad to assist. Our non-discrimination statement is the last thing on this slide, and we ask that you make sure as you are posting the non-discrimination statement that you have the most current and the correct one that's posted as required in the appropriate places. And again, I appreciate you participating in this verification webinar. If you have any questions, please let us know. We hope you have an amazing and wonderful day.